So, the chairman of this session is Guy Mizrahi. Hi, Guy. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Guy is a serial entrepreneur, a cyber expert, and a former hacker.
Yep.
Okay. Take the blame. All right. Let's meet our guests first, and then we'll start. Dadi, let's start with you. A couple words about yourself and your company.
Yes, so my name is Dadi Gertler. I'm Executive Director of Technology Systems in the INCD. So it's not a company, it's our very own Israeli National Cyber Security Agency dealing with technology.
Okay. Sanaz, good morning to you.
Hi, Yaakov. I was hoping to be on the right side because my good side is this one. But anyways, I'm Sanaz. I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm in Mandiant. It's a cybersecurity as service. American global company that is doing Intel, IR, and managed defense.
All right. And Omri.
Hello, everyone. Omri Segev Moyal. I'm the CEO of Profero, a company that specialized in rapid incident response, Israeli-based and working worldwide.
Okay. So, Guy, let's start with the burning question. What happens when you are being attacked?
I think that a few months ago we've done some kind of test in Tel Aviv University, and we did a demo of an attack and tried to understand what happened. And it was amazing. Everyone knew that it was a demo. Everyone knew that it's just a simulation, so nothing really bad is going to happen. And what we've seen there is that the main thing that happened is chaos. So there was chaos. People were in panic. They didn't know what to do. There was all kind of regulation, all kind of scenarios that you need to follow if there is some kind of attack. No one followed anything. So basically what you have is chaos, panic, and that's what leads the first few minutes, hours, and even days of the discovery of the attack.
So how do you, Sanaz, how do you tackle this? So there's panic, what's happening? Computers are going down, servers are going down. Who did it? Is it a malfunction? Is it an attack? How do you deal with that?
First of all, the most important fact when you get into this kind of situation, even it was a demo, as Guy mentioned, is that the advantage is for the attacker because they started first. This is what actually caused the chaos that Guy talked about that, right? So first thing you want to do in case that the customer or the target doesn't have routine or methodology in place, you want to get the advantage back to the victim, right, or to the potential victim. And what we are best off to get the advantage back is to kind of brief them how we understand the situation, right? What's T equals 0? What is the situation they are dealing with? I do believe that that data, information that we call it in our job threat intel, is something that could be delivered to the right person in the right time to get back the advantage to the victim. This is my first tip, but you know.
Dadi, I want to ask you, we spoke with Erez Tidar before from the National Directorate. When do you decide to intervene, to jump, to help somebody who's being attacked?
Well, it's a complex issue always. It very much depends on the specific organization being attacked. If it's a governmental organization or a private sector organization, even if it's a private sector organization, depends if he is part of our national critical infrastructure or not. So, of course, if it's a governmental organization or governmental-like organization, we have more power to intervene quite frequently. If not, it's pretty much depends on the organization itself. Usually, contacting companies like Mandiant and others, of course, And then if they require more kind of superior overlook, they contact us.
Okay. Omri, one of the first questions is who did it? Who's behind it? Find the attribution, right?
So we like to look at this kind of information in two levels. One of them is the tactical. So which threat actor is it, which group, tools, tactics, and procedures. It's usually called indicator of compromise, and trying to understand what are the capabilities of these groups. And then usually later, when we look at attribution, it's really in the macro level. Is it belonging to any kind of country, especially sanctioned countries? For example, when the initial Iranian campaigns in Israel, the ransomware campaign started, some companies actually paid the ransom because they didn't know it's related to Iran. So attribution is really, really important to understand for organizations, because they can actually, if they do it wrong, if they don't get the right intelligence that gives them to make intelligence to make the right decisions, they can actually bypass some very bad laws, communicating with a foreign actor. They can do a lot of those things which can really get them in trouble.
How long does it take in terms of hours, days, weeks to understand who's behind it?
It varies. Sometimes it can take a minute. We get in, we get the right IOCs, we're making sure nobody is fooling us, and we can give a really good attribution. And sometimes it can even take years of research and joint collaboration between companies and organizations.
Right. Do they have a signature? How do you know? I mean, in terms of operations.
Yeah, it's kind of an art, okay? So it's not mathematics. And you have, during the time, you have your own tactics and procedures how to try to find and how to make the intelligence better, how to optimize all this cycle of intelligence gathering, intelligence analysis, and trying to find the, let's call it, signature of an attacker. And when you get to that point, it might be very, very easy and very
So, Sanaz, there are different styles of attacks from different parts of the world?
There are completely different styles of it. There are 50 shades.
50 shades of attacks.
If not 500 of shades of different attacks, different missions and different TTPs. DTPs, what Omri just said, is the kind of signature we actually, the modus operandi of the certain threat group, right? That we try to attribute or not attribute. But I want to go back. You asked, the first question asked is who is behind the attack? And I disagree. I think it's not the first question. The first question is something very important for the target, is to minimize the damage, right? Is to understand how you're going to break the chain of this attack and kind of minimize the damage, the potential damage, and optimize the interest of the victim. So sometimes attribution matters at the first stages, as Omri said, like if it's a attacker posing like a cybercrime, but it's actually not cybercrime, it's an hack and leak, or they try to actually shame and hack and shame. So of course, paying the ransom, it's not going to help. But sometimes the most important thing, and this is what I really want to tell about threat intel, is follow the data. Follow the data is look at the data, try to just go very, very tight to the forensic evidence and to the understanding of the same threat actor that you knew before, and give that information to the operational and strategic levels in order to do the right decision. The right decision could be to turn off the computers, but the right decision could be also, no, we need another hours or 3 days to see what else the attacker did before we are actually cutting this chain, right? So attribution matters, but not always at the first stages of the battlefield.
Right, and guys, especially in commercial companies, time is money. So if you shut off the computers, how long could you do that?
Yeah, I think that shutting down the computer is one way to deal with the cyber threat, and we've seen those Those things happened, I think, a few years ago, but it can happen now if we understand that you need to do it in order to block the attack or to stop minimize the damage of the attack. But when we're dealing with a cyber attack, we need, first of all, to understand what the attacker wants, what he succeeded to do, and we need to decide if we want to block the attack or maybe to leave the attack and feed it with different types of information, what we need to do. Because the first thing that everyone wants to do is let's clean it off, let's make it right. But if the attacker already stole some information, already got some databases, some ways that we could handle this situation is feed it with a lot of garbage, and when it exposed, maybe the damage would be minimized. So I do agree with what all my colleagues here said. Stop the panic, think a little bit, and then act. Don't just do the first thing that you think about.
Don't run to the switch and turn it off immediately. Dadi, as we've heard before here, you have a response team. Would you recommend commercial companies to have response teams as well?
There are professionals in the market. So I think you have a panel yesterday about IR. Most companies are not big enough and not professional enough to hold their own homegrown IR team. So for that, exactly, there are professionals in the market. And, many professional companies with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, with very good people. Let the professional lead the way.
Right. Omri, from your experience, all these ransomware attacks, as we said, commercial companies under pressure to get rid of this as soon as possible because time is money. How inclined are they to pay all these ransoms and get rid of it as quickly as possible?
I'm going to give a very contradictory answer. Not many people are going to like it. Chris Kyle is an ex-Marine who passed away, the book called Sniper. And he had a saying, violence, despite what your mom told you, violence does solve problems. And the way we've seen it in many, many organizations, despite what everybody tells you, paying ransom does solve problems. Sometimes, not always, but there are many, many factors to consider before making a payment. And sometimes to the organization, you can solve an incident. It's not just the ransom itself, of course. It's not magic. But let's say you can get a ransom in around $100,000. Recovering from it, if there's no backups, can cost $10 million. There's also a lot of things like legal consideration. Did you do enough to prevent the data of your customers being leaked after you've been ransomed? And if you didn't pay, you might get sued. So it's not just technical question. It's not just, is it better for the greater good? You need to think, is it best for my company right now, given this specific situation? And it's a very hard decision to make, I gotta tell you that.
Yeah, well,
I think that this is a headline, This is something that a lot of us think and not a lot of us can, freely talk about, but paying sometimes solves the problem, but you need to be smart if you want to pay. You need to understand that it will solve the problem or minimize dramatically the damage. And I think that most of the cyber professional does understand it, but not everyone can talk about it freely.
yeah, because what happened to not being blackmailed, not giving in to, I don't know, terrorists and criminals? Just pay and that's it.
No, wait, I have to. Okay, we don't recommend to pay to terrorists, but if, and also we have some, I do agree that in some cases paying is the best way to get out of that tactical way and get back the advantage and make yourself not vulnerable. But we do have evidences that the time you pay, it takes a little bit time for them to come back. And if they are not coming back, so others coming back because there is somebody's actually is paying. So it's also another decision. Maybe for the CISO that is in the present, the best thing is just to pay and just, that's it. But for the next one and for the next one, he's actually creating more problems because then they have this, the tag that this guy is going to pay. Mm-hmm. So let's start to do the extortion thing.
So Dadi, we have a major business here. They make a lot of
it pays off to be a hacker.
Right?
No, don't say that.
It's very profitable for them, for the bad guys. That's for sure. We definitely know that some of the major hacking ransomware groups in the world, they're working for 2 or 3 years, and then they have their pension. I mean, they don't need anything else. They just lay down their tools.
Right. So how do you make a front of all these companies and victims? Stop paying, do something about it. Any chance for that?
We have our general recommendation, exactly as Sanaz mentioned. That's a general practice all over the world, I think. But you can never, it's all individuals, so you can never take the position of a CEO or a CISO of a certain organization and force him not to pay or to pay. Else, of course, if it's a governmental organization, we can force them not to pay. But the private sector is free to do. It's a business decision.
Omri?
I want to comment on that, and I'll be very strict here. Worldwide, up until maybe start of this year, governments worldwide dealing with ransomware was extremely weak. They were giving most of the decision-making to the companies themselves, and in the end of the day, each company has to take the best decision for its stakeholders at the given time. They can't look at the wider picture, and they shouldn't. That's their job. CEOs, chairman of the boards, etc., they need to make the right decision. What government needs to do, cyber doctrine, the FBI, everybody worldwide, they need to start tackling those attackers and the nation state that are supporting them heavily, harshly, including in physical if required. And the US did recently start to do it more often.
But there are a lot of countries that, they are okay if you attack outside of this country, but do not attack inside. So there are a lot of approaches of countries that says, listen, this is one more way to earn money, just don't do it locally.
Yeah, Robin Hood. So I think, first of all, it's a very good question. If you have an answer for that, so we are going to do a startup together.
Oh, yeah, I'll send you an email.
Okay, I'm waiting. The second of all, I think this is a combination of two. Even I'm looking for the three and I don't remember, but there is a combination of two things. First, we should cooperate and partnership. This is the only way we can actually survive. For example, in the past months, you have heard about ransomware on healthcare of Israel. The only way we could get out of it was partnership, even competitors, right? My company, others' company, to talk to each other, to compare the data we have and to help the possible victims, especially when we are in the time of COVID and we cannot let our computers to get down. The second one is I have a dream, that we get more proactive as a government, and actually, as Omri said, because a lot of the attacks and compromise you can see, they are not all targeted. I'm not talking about like very targeted. They are looking for the weakest link, right? How they are looking for the weakest link? They are kind of scanning the whole environment, for example, of Israel, and looking for vulnerabilities to get in. Why we cannot do that as a government? I think we should always be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the attackers to scan those vulnerabilities and to alert the company before the attacker got there. I know it's still a dream and it has to have also some legals around it, but I do believe that if there is one nation state that we can do partnership and we can make dreams true, is Israel, because we are small, we are a startup nation, we know each other all from army. We can do it, and we can show also other nations that how we are successful in that.
Yeah, I think that one of the most amazing things in the Israeli ecosphere, in the cyber ecosphere, even in Israel, is that you know, we are all frenemies. So basically, we are competing about the customers. We are all selling basically the same. We want to sell cyber protection or cyber defense, but we all talk together. We are all friends. You know, we can talk about one thing that happened, and I want an advice from one of my competitors. It's basically okay. And I think that this is something that we came up that help us to fight those bad things.
You want to comment on that, Dadi?
Yeah, well, they're totally right. No argue about that. But again, I will leverage Sanaz saying about the justice system in Israel and all other democratic countries. As probably you all know, we currently still doesn't have a law, cyber law in Israel. We are waiting for this law to happen as soon as possible. Without this law that let us operate as everybody expects, we need to have this framework.
Right. Omri, final remark?
Yeah, I'll be happy to add something on that. We work worldwide, and the thing we learn is that the same as organizations sometimes have the necessity to pay ransom, they also have the independency, and they shouldn't be relying on any kind of government actions or any other companies worldwide. They should be relying on themselves. And any company should no longer have the ability to say, we didn't know this kind of threat happens. It happens everywhere, from Colonial Pipeline to hospitals in England. We just dealt with an incident in Jakarta. It happens everywhere. Companies need to be aware that this threat is real. And what the next thing, if you hear this panel, ask your technical persons, what do we do against the next ransomware? What do we do against the next cyber attack? Don't rely on government to do anything for you because they won't.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll be continuing now to the next panel, which is very interesting.